Welcome to my second edition of Financial Services Training, Combining Knowledge with Skills, Level 2, On-the-Job Training and Assessment. This is Option 3, Authentic Assessment by Craig Parr, Curriculum 528, August 1st, 2016, Michael Burnett, Instructor. In the introduction, what is the objective of an authentic assessment? We're going to discuss why we do the authentic assessment. We're going to talk about the instructor materials used. We're going to discuss the introduction and description of the background knowledge you need to know. Then we're going to go on to the assessment activity. What's the instructor's role and what's your role? Then we're going to have a discussion regarding the debriefing session, and then the assessment of learning using the rubric. And then finally we're going to follow that with analysis of learning. We hope that you'll take this as an understanding of what's to come, and you'll do well on the assessment. Thanks. So in order for you to understand the training and testing we're going to be using, you need to understand what an authentic assessment objective is. The traditional was the first session of training you went through, where you went and answered the multiple choice and true and false and that type of situation in a classroom. The authentic assessment brings you out and does a performance assessment. Show me how you've learned what you've learned. Understanding equals the abilities to complete the tasks. So we need to know that you've taken the classroom material and brought it out into the real world. The authentic focuses on a real world application. The traditional, as I said, equals a basic understanding, the classroom sections. The authentic equals an advanced understanding of the material. And then we get to see an application of the skills you've learned in the first session. So in understanding the instruction, you need to know what the instructor is looking at and what materials he uses. As you see by the little picture, skills, abilities, and knowledge is what he's looking for. He's going to step back and watch you as you do your job. Make sure that you're doing everything correctly and anything that you may need help with. We're going to assess your strengths and weaknesses in each area. We're going to offer you guidance to help you get to that next level. We're going to help you understand multiple directions you can go in. We're going to look for you to actually go in those multiple directions on your own. We're going to play more of a leadership role. We're going to step back and kind of lead you through anything you have problems with. And we want to see any creative approaches that you take on. Introduction and description of your background knowledge. We want to know that you know your materials. Do you understand the basics of the job? We're going to allow you to reference your training material, and then we're going to follow you and watch you during special situations. Our world is full of them. We run into situations all the time. We want to see how you handle that, but more so that you understand those basics. We want to ensure that you follow the right approach, that you're looking at problem solving when there's an issue, and that you know the location of the answer if you don't know the answer yourself. Then we're going to look at your customer skills. We're going to follow your routine. We're going to watch to see if you speak with confidence. We want you to know that, with any issues or problems, that the knowledge is there in your reference material and in those around you, and you can ask at any time. Finally is the assessment activity, how this all works. You're the new hire. Your role is to sell the product. We're going to evaluate your technical techniques and your knowledge of the product. Do you know the product? The second step is you describe the financing. As you're going through that step, we're going to examine your understanding of both policy and compliance, the TILA, the ECOA, the Reg Z that you've learned. Number 3, verifying the customer, basically verifying the information. We're going to examine the way that you verify. We're going to make sure that you're paying attention to that fraud detection and that you've got validated paperwork and the person in front of you is actually that person and the information they've given you is true and accurate. Then it's explain the program in step 4. We're going to examine your understanding and knowledge of our sales program, the delivery portions, the warranty portions, all the different steps that are involved in that program. And then finally, explaining the paperwork to the customer. We're going to examine your contract explanations, your terminology, whether you're meeting compliance, whether your customer understands, and if the customer understands about how the payments are. As you see by the training schedule, the entire process will run a total of 10 days or 2 weeks. Day 1 and 2 will deal completely with product knowledge. Day 3 and 4 will deal with the finance program basics and compliance. Day 5 is application verification. Day 6 is program understanding. Day 7, paperwork basics. Day 8, paperwork explanation. And then day 9 and 10 are on the job in actual situations. Now, through the training, you will be in a branch. You will show your product knowledge. We will be interacting with customers on that level only, but that'll give you a little bit of a taste, and then towards the end, we'll wrap the whole thing up and put the whole thing together. Next, we're going to go through the debriefing session. We're going to keep this session positive, both you and I. We're going to provide the information from the instructor to the trainee or you. We're going to watch for your ability to communicate with the customer. We're going to discuss that ability to communicate. We're going to discuss your ability to process information. We're going to discuss the ability to apply your knowledge to the situation. Finally, we're going to look at your ability to explain the different situations and the ability to generalize about the product, about the service, and pretty much everything in general. And then we're going to go through on methods for you to improve and do well. Basically, a debriefing is what went well, what didn't go well, and what new knowledge or skills you need to develop to make your next sale even better. Now you'll notice on the rubric we've got trainee branch assessment, and this is going to basically be what the trainer looks for on these different situations. First is the product knowledge. Does the employee have a basic understanding of the product sold? Now, we're not asking them to be an expert. We just want them to have a basic knowledge and understanding. In time, they'll get that expertise, but do they know what a TV is? Some basic things. When they explain this item to the people, do they display confidence in their knowledge, or are they constantly questioning, is that right? Is that wrong? Next, we look at financing. Does the employee explain the finance process in full? There's no indications of violations of any policy or regulations. Do they understand the methods of the payment? Next, we go to the application verification. When the employee verifies the application, do they examine the paperwork provided by the customer? Do they look at each piece of paper in detail or just skim through it? When they verify, do they speak to the right person instead of calling, are they checking to see if the work is a cell phone of a friend or the actual job? These things are important. Do they ask the customer for information? Say a customer doesn't have it, do they ask for it? Do they seek alternatives to find that information? Next is program understanding. When the employee discusses the program with the customer, do they explain when the contract starts? Do they discuss the delivery and not to accept any damaged merchandise? Do they explain once the items are signed for by the customer, they belong to the customer? And then finally, the last area we're looking at is paperwork explanation. When the employee discusses the sales agreement, did they talk about the warranty? Did they talk about the price? Did they talk about all the points on the sales contract? Did they go over the contract in a compliant manner, explaining each section? This is a compliance issue. If they don't explain each section, then we've got a problem. Did the customer understand the contract and the payment due clauses? Do they know when to pay? Do they know how much to pay? Do they know when their first payment's due? And each of these areas you're looking at, they fully meet the criteria. They need improvement in, say, one area. They need improvement in 2 or 3 areas, and then they need improvement in all areas. And you'll take this information, like I say, over a group of customers and assess each one. We're going to do an analysis of your learning. We want to see how much you paid attention to each section and whether or not we need to change to make it better for you and easier for you to understand. We're not going to look at just one simple situation. We're going to look at multiple situations. That way we get a better feeling of your abilities and everything that you need to do. We don't expect you to know it going right out of the gate. And through the next few sales, we're going to work together and we're going to bring you out to that better level. Then we're going to analyze and debrief each time as you go. Meaning we're going to go through the first sale. After the customer leaves, we're going to go through it. Second sale, same thing. we're going to examine the whole session, not just one. We're going to look at the whole thing and see how you did on the overall, not just one situation. Then we're going to teach you to understand and become successful. That's what we're here for. That's what all this analysis is about, is to say, hey, look, we want you to be successful at what you do. So in summary, we understand that an authentic assessment is to help you become better by using the hands-on methods, by using the real-world situations. You've got to look at what the instructor materials are, the check sheet, the levels that they need to understand, the introduction and description of the background knowledge in order for you to go to this level, the assessment activity, what's being assessed, what we're doing, what we're looking at, the rubric. We're going to look at the debrief session. It's going to tell you how can you be better. And then, of course, the assessment of the lesson using your rubric. We're going to sit down and we're going to look at it together. We're going to figure out what we need to do to help you get an excellent in every single area. Finally, there's that analysis of learning, and that's going through to determine, did you get the full capacity out of this assessment? Is there something we can do to make it better? Is there something anyone else can do to make it better? We're going to analyze every single step and make sure that when you come out of this learning session that you do well.